Thank you for joining us today. As you are aware, and most people are aware, that we are having this meeting on the AU member states consultations on the development of the Common African Paper on climate change, peace and security. So maybe at this point you would introduce yourself and okay, since you come from the United Nations also, the position that you hold at the United Nations and how it connects to the African region.
Thanks very much, and it's a very exciting day actually to be discussing this issue, as you say. My name is Elizabeth Carabine. I'm a Climate Peace and Security Advisor with the United Nations, specifically to the Office of the Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa. So for me, I'm working with the Regional Economic Community here, IGAD, and that's my link to the African Union broader process. In this region, we've been focused for some time actually on working together, also with the AU, with IGAD, the UN, in really according to our niche and our complementarity, to come with a common position from this region, the Horn of Africa and its member states. We've really been able to succeed in that effort over the last couple of years, and now it's very exciting to see that elevated to the continental level today.
Okay, thank you. So how then do you state practically the involvement of the United Nations when it comes to peace and security in the Horn of Africa?
So there's several ways. I mean, first of all, in my office, the UN is a big organization, but in my office, the political mission, we have the mandate of the United Nations to work with IGAD, the Regional Economic Community, and its member states on peace and security issues. So climate, peace and security has become, through our partnership, one of those key pillars of our strategy of working together, really. Then under that pillar it is actually a part of the UN's comprehensive regional strategy to preventing conflict and building peace. All the different agencies that you might know, those on the humanitarian side, the World Food Programme, the International Organization Migration, and many others, the missions we have in the region, keeping peace in South Sudan, working on the political mission in Somalia, in Abyei, they're all falling under this framework. So that's really the way we're organizing ourselves to support the member states and IGAD on their priorities when it comes to climate, peace and security. What we can sometimes do as the UN is complement with technical or financial support, but especially I think where it's important is on this issue of advocacy, especially at the international level. We can bring to the Security Council discussions and to the UNFCCC fora, help to really emphasize the message coming from this region and from these member states in those international fora. And I think today is an example of that at the continental level.
At this point, are we safe to say we have weak policies or policies that have not been implemented?
So I think this is a global issue, first of all, because we don't have very strong, clear language about the links between climate and security from either the UN Security Council resolutions or the UNFCCC Paris Agreement, essentially. You see that filter down. So because we don't have the international framework, we don't really know who is holding the mandate in any particular country. Is it a Ministry of Environment issue? Is it a defense issue? Is it even an interior issue or a foreign affairs issue? And the answer is it's all of those, but all of us, and I think that IGAD are the furthest ahead on trying to tackle this issue and institutionalize climate, peace and security. The African Union also, leading the way, honestly, globally, as we heard this morning, to figure out how we do that. So there is a lack of policies, but only because we don't have a kind of natural filter down from an international framework. That's the way I see it, and that's something you hear this morning in some of the speeches, including from the Honourable Minister and the chair of the Africa Group of Negotiators, that we need to find those entry points in things like the Paris Agreement, in Security Council resolutions, building from the bottom up, that we create that framework.
So lastly, how then would we state the United Nations response when it comes to peace and security globally, especially when it comes to climate change?
Please, could you repeat? I missed the...
Or how would we state the response of the United Nations when it comes to peace and security, especially where climate change is involved?
Sure. Thanks for repeating. So I mentioned that I'm a climate, peace and security advisor in the political mission for the Horn of Africa. I have counterparts also in the UN office to West Africa, to Central Africa, some in the mission to South Sudan, the mission to Somalia, even the mission in Iraq, the mission in Afghanistan. So we're a growing cohort, and the reason we're there it's because of a recognition by the UN, and particularly the positions of some Security Council members over time, including Kenya, and including what we call the Group of Friends on Climate Security of the UN, which is now around a third of the membership of the whole United Nations. We have been really pushing this effort as the climate security mechanism to improve our ability as a system, the UN system, to assess climate-related risks to peace and security and to address them. We see that some of the issues that you've heard from our panelists just now around climate-induced mobility, around competition over resources, around armed groups and the dynamics, with those who are under stress from climate impacts. Those are things that we see in our peacekeeping and political missions where we are. Most of the places where the UN is working are either humanitarian crisis areas, or they are where there are issues around conflict and fragility. So that's where you find us, so we can't ignore the problem. That's how we've been addressing it, but only since around 2018, I would say, this has becoming institutionalized. So for all of us, it's a learning journey, and we must walk together.
Well, we must say then it's very recognizable efforts by the United Nations. And maybe at this point, any final recommendations or any recommendations you may have?
No, I mean, we're just very grateful to have been part of the discussion. This is a discussion for the African Union member states. We really look forward to seeing how the deliberations go and what common African position comes. And for African Union and the RECs and the member states to tell us as UN, how can we help them then in the next steps? We'll learn from that process ourselves without any doubt. There's the UN system, many other regions of the world are watching with interest. So my only recommendation is please keep up the energy. It's not easy work. It's really an incredible step to be here today, and please keep leading the way.
Thank you so much for that recommendation, and it has been a pleasure hosting you.